Hey, 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 I hope things are going well for you. I'm going to talk about how we self sabotage and how we let others sabotage us, and we may not even know we're doing it. Most of us do it at some point in our life, and there's a lot of reasons why. So let's talk about that a little bit. My name is Lynn McDaniel Sanderson, and I help women build their business on social media using attraction marketing, or it's a method that teaches you how to attract people to you and how to build your business without spamming your product or messaging strangers or bugging friends and family. I'm sure most of us, or many of you know what I'm talking about. I was there and I did that before, and now I've learned differently. So anyway, I have notes. I'm going to keep on do this because this is I'm going to talk to you about my personal issue too, and it does have emotion around it, and when there's emotion around it, I tend to go get off track. So I don't want to do that. So we're going to talk about how we sabotage ourselves and let others do that. The first thing, you guys have probably heard the term of self limiting beliefs. And that's when we have doubt about ourselves and we don't think we can do something, or we limit what we can do. So I currently have a goal, and I recognize that, I kept seeing it in my future, but not in I had a hard time doing it in my present, even though I was trying to manifest that and had things built around that. And I realized it's because of some childhood thoughts of when I was unworthy. So when I was a young kid, I used to be called dingy and skinny Linny and things like that. And they weren't, the person doing it or the people doing it weren't trying to be malicious. They were just teasing me. And that is a male thing, that males tease because I think they don't know how to not do it. And because males tolerate teasing better, I think. And I'm sorry if I'm making a judgment there. I shouldn't. But I didn't take teasing very well. So it interrupted my, excuse me, core belief of me. And I struggled a lot of time in my life about worthiness. I want to talk about that a little bit. But I'll come back to that later. One of the things I want to talk about is a murky pool. So if any of you have owned a pool, or have ever cleaned a pool, or got a pool ready, or whatever for the beginning of the year, put your favorite emoji in there if you've done some work on pools and you know what I'm going to talk about. Anyway, so there's a lot of work to it, but it is really worth it, in my opinion, once it's done. And same thing with your personal life. So what happens when you take the tarp off the pool or the cover off the pool? It's a little bit cold, been a little bit cold, and so it looks pretty clear, but you can see stuff on the bottom. But there's stuff in the water that's floating in there, and you can't always see it until you start to clean it. And so once you get your pH right and get your chemicals going, you stir up all the stuff in the pool, and it is a murky mess. And that's what happens to us when we start working on our issues. Things become a murky mess, a murky pool. It is. So the analogy is, you're looking at some of your issues and you're trying to clean them up, and it just brings up a whole bunch of chaos in your life and in your brain at that time. But the good news is, once you get that cleaned up and you keep working forward, you start to see the bottom of the pool more and more and more. You clean it up more and more, and eventually it's crystal clear. And so that's what it is in our life when we have things that we have to address. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I'm having a breakthrough personally, and I had a murky pool this week. I was able to recognize it and move forward on it, and I've got some actions, and I thought, I had to share that with you guys. So um, that's the analogy about the pool, but I want to talk about what is really the ultimate bottom line or cause of this. It's fear. When we're afraid of something, we're afraid of change, or we're afraid of getting hurt or taking a risk or whatever that is, our lizard brain kicks in, and that's our amygdala. And the amygdala is it does fear conditioning. So the amygdala, back in the day of caveman days or whatever, our amygdala was there to keep us safe because they had lots of natural dangers out there. They had lions and tigers and bears. Anyway, but they really did have real dangers out there. So our amygdala is to keep us from when the bear is getting ready to attack us. It's our fight or flight syndrome. It's the response. So that's there to keep us safe. The problem is we don't need it to the degree that we did then. There are situations where people are unsafe, and that fight or flight needs to come in. But most of the fight or flight, or most of the fear that many of us experience, is related to things that are not reasonable. Like, for instance, my fear the past week has been about this goal, and for some reason, my amygdala was telling me I'm not worthy and I can't do it, and all those kind of things. My executive brain, my higher brain, said yes, I can, I'm going to, but my amygdala was telling me no, you can't do this. So what I did was had to step back. So one of the things, so that left me a fear of failure. It was fear of change, fear of my unworthiness, whatever it was. The fear was there apparently, and I had to do some things to move beyond that. So when we have fear and it's not reasonable, you got to do something about that, because guess what? The fear is going to win then. And if the fear wins, you're not going to move anywhere. So how many of you have had fear, or think that maybe you have fear and things aren't moving forward? I bet most of us do. And we have to find a way to do that. You know what? All those $1 million people, they've had that fear too. The difference is they embraced it, they recognized it, and they moved forward. So that's what we're going to talk about some more. So I also mentioned about other people, and I mentioned about unworthiness in me. So I told you that I didn't, I allowed people to let me feel, or allow myself to feel unworthy. And that was from when I was a child. I didn't know any better then, but as I became an adult, I still carried that. Now, I personally have had trauma in my life as a child and as a young woman. Just a little sidebar, trauma and ADHD manifest the same. So I've always said, oh, I have ADHD. And then when I started learning about trauma, I recognized, maybe it's trauma. There's a lot of people in my family that also have ADHD. And now I wonder, is it trauma? The responses are different. And so people need to figure out which it is. It could be both. I don't know. I'm not telling you about that piece, but I just wanted you to know that the response to trauma is also the same thing as people that have ADHD, the short attention span and things like that. So one of the things with trauma is you're hypervigilant. And what does that mean? That means that you respond stronger, more often, more easily than you would. And so I've got to really watch that in myself, because I know that I do that. I know I respond to things, and I have to step myself back and say, whoa, Lynn. But it makes you feel anxious over things that really shouldn't, most people wouldn't feel anxious over, or you shouldn't feel anxious over. And so I've learned self-care. Years ago, I learned about self-care and things I need to do that. So some of the things that I wanted, and sorry, I do, just in case you didn't catch it, I've got notes to keep myself on track, because like I said, this is an emotional issue for me. It's working on the core of who I am. Anyway, so some of the things that I do to help me with the trauma are deep breathing and meditation, taking a time out. And then some of the things I do to help with my fear are taking action and things like that. So I'm going to talk about in just a minute. So one of the things, when I recognize that I am having a fear issue, and I'm not talking about, oh my gosh, there's a spider, I'm afraid, or something like that. I'm talking about in my business, trying to move forward, trying to build my business, and doing all these new things to me. I start feeling overwhelmed. I start pulling back and losing motivation. I recognize what my actions are. So I know what to do when those happen. And I just had to do that this week. So like I said, the big goal that I have, the great big goal that I have, my long-term, a couple years out goal, I was having some self-doubt. And so I started sabotaging myself. I'm moving along on my goals and my objectives. And then, so as a side note, I do have to say, I'm working on the past few months, allowing myself some grace too, because I've had some significant things happening in my life. Starting the beginning of August, I had lost my niece. and most recently, and there were a whole bunch of other things in between there, weddings and lots of activities. That I'm an introvert, so those activities, while I love them, they really take a lot out of me. And I did a lot of food and things like that for all those things to help out. So anyway, most recently, my sister was in ICU in critical condition, and a couple of family members had COVID and were really sick. And so my point is, I was feeling overwhelmed because of those things too, but that's not, I recognize that was not the whole thing. I had fear over them, but it was my business, and I know that because I could tell by the way I responded. So one of the things, the first thing I do, I recognize that, so there's different steps to fight or flight. There's fight, there's flight, there's freeze, and I do freeze sometimes, and there's also fold. And I kind of do a combination of freeze and fold. So I recognized one day last week I had these things to do that I needed to do some work on my website. And I went in there. Usually I really like that. I know that I'm a geek. But and for you, those of you geeks out there, raise your hand and let me know, because you'll get this. I like doing the steps to build my website, and because it's learning new things and doing new things. Anyway, I went in and the videos were really short videos to show me what to do, and I was overwhelmed by it. And that is not like me. And I'm like, oh, something's going on here. And I could not make myself do it. And I realized, okay, first of all, I need to step back. And I thought about what was going on with me, and I realized I am feeling overwhelmed. But what is causing that overwhelm? Well, some of the personal stuff, but also it was fear. Moving forward in my business, getting there where I'm ready to do the next step on there. So some people may not agree with this. I tend to need to wallow. I need to step back and process it. And this has been my history. I know that. When I hit that brick wall and I can't get things done, I know that I need to stop and think about it. And it just takes me a day or two. And so guess what I did? I said, okay, I'm going to get the bare minimum done. I got my post done. I did, all the friends on Facebook and all those. There's some things that are part of my DMO that I got done. But then you know what I did? I sat and did watch TV all day, all afternoon. And I'm not a great big TV watcher. I have been lately because it's kind of boring when you can't go out and do a lot of stuff because of COVID. So after the end of the first day, I was like, I'm feeling this overwhelmed, not as bad. So what I did the same thing the next day, except that on both those days, I did feel motivated to do some things around the house, which when we talked about the freeze piece, that's one of my avoidance behaviors. And I've mentioned this before. When I was in college and it was time to study for finals, my house was spick and span. I avoided studying and got my house cleaned. And then, in time, I was a really good student. I did well in school. But in the interim, I got my house cleaned, and then I started studying when there was a point of, okay, no, it has to be done. So anyway, so just a few things about that too. So I allow myself to wallow. Some people, that's called processing. That's what I do to process. And then I also do self-care during those times. So those times I said I was watching TV, I also was doing meditating and reading. I brought this book up to you guys before. I'm going to show it to you real quick because it's a really great book. Anyway, reading things in this too, which kind of was a trigger for some of this stuff because I was doing some affirmations. But that's okay, because guess what? When we got murky water, when we're hitting issues, we got to move forward. So taking action, and then the next thing is taking action to do something. So that's what I did after 2 days of that wallowing and processing and self-care. It was time to take some action. And so that's what I did. The first thing I did was made my to-do list and decided to do small bites, like how to eat elephant one bite at a time. So I broke down, and there's a whole series of videos that I'm watching about how to build my website. And I also doing a training that I was couldn't attend because of family reasons. And so I'm watching things of that too. So guess what? My goal yesterday was to watch 10 minutes of each one of those. And I did that actually, and one of them I watched an hour and a half. So I knew I was coming out of that period of time. Let me go find my rest of my notes. I seem to have. Oh, so now the other thing is I want to talk about what you can do. So what I do and what I did was created a plan to go forward when I recognize these. The first thing is recognizing them. I know when I start when I'm doing some growth that I hit that murky pool, and then I recognize when it's time to do that, and then that's when I start the wallow in self-care and then taking action. So but I want to give you a little analogy that you can keep around, and maybe you can build your plan about when you're not moving forward, or you can step back and start seeing which things you are not moving on. I recognize it because of my affirmations. When you have affirmations, your subconscious, I've talked about this before, your subconscious tries to move you toward those, and if you're not moving toward those, it's because there's something blocking you, and that's probably where you're having the fear and you have some work to do. So fear, Fear, part I just talked about, face the issue. Learn to recognize when you have an issue and when others are giving you an issue. Like, for instance, when I talked about other people made me feel unworthy, one step real quick. Nobody can make you feel unworthy. You are the only one that should be accepting any opinions about yourself. It is all up to you. So as an adult, I choose not to. I'm going to give you at the end of this, I'm going to talk to about it. A couple actions I want you to take if you're interested, or if you're willing to. Here's some actions you can take. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so face the issue, evaluate it. What is it? Why are you having that? What can you do different? Sometimes if you meditate, or sometimes if you just sit back and sit quietly, your brain will tell you what it needs to know, or sleep on it and the next day you'll know. The next thing is act. So that's where I'm at now. I'm in the act phase. And these are called personal upgrades, by the way. So I'm having an upgrade right now. I believe I can reach that goal. And I think I've got my subconscious there finally. And I'm taking all the actions I need to do that. So, and then what do you do after that? So that's FEA. The last one is R, reevaluate. So I'm taking actions, and then in a day or so, I'll reevaluate where I'm at and how I've succeeded on that too. So, there was something I was gonna. Oh, take action. So one of the things I would like you to think about is, it's really hard to get out of childhood. And I'll be honest, this is maybe a bias, but especially for women, we are sabotaged every day by the media, by other people. One of the clients, and I agree with her on it, one of my clients talked about how when she goes online to look at the gurus, they're all these beautiful, lovely people. Well, we have a tendency to gravitate toward beautiful people, but guess what? You know how you can avoid that? Maybe gravitate toward them, but then find somebody that's not so beautiful and a perfect person, and let them be your inspiration. You know, we don't have to keep following those norms. We can change. Like, there's this one lady on TikTok, and I love her stuff. She is not an attractive person, but guess what? She is, because it's about her inside, and her stuff is great. So you can make a choice on that one. That's one thing. So, sorry, I have to keep looking at my notes. I just saw a point I wanted to make, and I missed it. And sorry, I'll come back to it another time. Anyway, when we do this, when we take action, it makes a difference in our lives and in our business. And so that's what I want you to do. Take some action about that. When all those people try to give you the message of unworthiness, you may not consciously notice they are, but they are they are damaging your self-conscious when people say negative things about you, or you say negative things about yourself. So I want you to think about, if you would be willing to do this, making a list, by the way, I did this, of people in your life who made you feel unworthy. I will say made you feel unworthy, because I've had people in my life that made me feel unworthy, and I recognize now I allowed them to. And then once you make that list, write something, write it, or do it on your phone or something. Make it where you can visually see it. And then once you make that list of people that have made you feel unworthy, write something about how they no longer have the power, because you are worthy and you're the one that decides your worthiness. So, in other words, I want, if you would be willing to do this, think about a way that negates what they said. And then I want you to think on that. Because if somebody made you feel unworthy, you allowed them to, number one. Maybe you're a child and you didn't have a choice, but even as an adult, we let that happen. But they also have something wrong with them. They were like the people that I think about in my life that made me feel unworthy as an adult. Now, as a child, it was, young parents. As an adult, the people that made me feel unworthy were people that tended to not be such nice people. But I allowed it. So I want you to make that list and think about that. And then your affirmation after that is that you are worthy and nobody else can make you feel unworthy. And when you do that, you're going to see a big difference. So anyway, let me know if you're in the comment section, if you're going to work on this or not. I don't care what you do. Just say I'm there or I'm going to, because I know that that's what I have to do. I have to work on it and keep myself accountable. And if you need somebody else to help you be accountable to work on those things, I would be more than happy to do that. So anyway, if you're watching this on the replay, hashtag replay. And if this was a value to you, I would love for you to write value in the comment section too. And you know what? Going forward, don't let others make you feel unworthy. Quit sabotaging yourself by letting fear take over, and use some of these steps to help you get beyond your fear. And join this journey with me, because that's what I'm doing right now. Anyway, take care. Hope you have a great morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you're at in the world. Bye.